God bless you. Children, anybody want to come forward today to hear a story? Yes. Harry, come on, Harry. Come on, Harry. Come on, buddy. Oh, well, that's okay. You don't have to. Come on, guys. How you doing? Hi, Johnny. So you guys, I want to talk to you today about a story you might have heard before, but there's a little bit more to it than maybe we've heard. Come on, Ella. Come on, guys. Come on. So let's start by figuring out who's in the story. In the story is David. And David belongs to a group of people known as the Hebrews. Right? Do you remember about the Hebrews? Do you remember that they were chosen specially by God to be God's people? So they were chosen by God, and God said, guess what? I'm going to enter into a relationship with you. That's like being a friend, or that's like being a family. And God said, you know what? Not just everybody gets this treatment, but I'm going to choose you. And I want you to be in my family, and let's do things for each other. I'll do some things for you, and you do some things for me, and together we'll have this sort of relationship. Okay, so that's called a covenant, and that's what God had with the people of Israel, the Hebrews, and that's who David was. All right, so that's the story when we start. Now, these people were in their land, and by them were some other people that didn't like them. Right? It was like if we were mad at the people over in Council Bluffs. Right? It's kind of like that. Have you ever been mad at somebody? Right? And so they're over there and we're here, and all of a sudden they want to fight. But they came at them, and they came with their armies, and they said, let's have a big fight. We'll decide at the end of our war who gets this land. We want your land, and we'll fight you for it. Okay? So that's what's going on. But they were tired of killing each other all the time, because when armies come together, they would fight and fight and fight, and so many people would be killed. Like hundreds and thousands and hundreds of thousands, like 30,000, 40,000, 100,000 people. And they said, well, let's don't do that. Let's just do one person. I'll tell you what they said. We'll bring our best warrior, and you bring your best warrior, and we'll put them together, and they fight, and whoever wins between just those two guys, that's who wins. And we'll take the land. Whoever wins takes the land. And the Israelites, the Hebrews, said, okay, we'll do that. That's a good plan. We'll do it. That way not everybody has to fight and die. Well, the Philistines had a trick. Because they went, great, I'm so glad you agree. Great, good job. Okay, come on out, Goliath. Right? And so they pull out this guy. Now, he's a huge giant. He's like 10 feet tall. Like this. Hey, I'm their best warrior. Okay, great plan. Bring out your puny little guy. Right? He's so big and so powerful that the Hebrews said, oh my gosh, we don't want to fight this guy. Forget it. Forget it. We're deal off. We don't want it. We don't want to do it. But they had to send somebody. And nobody wanted to go. Well, that's where David comes in.
We watched that movie.
You did, so you know how it goes. Well, now David was just a young boy. He wasn't, and how old are you?
10.
He wasn't much older than you. A little bit older than you, but not much, about 14 or so. And he came, and he was really just there to report back to his family what was going on. Because his family, he had a lot of brothers in this fight. So he comes out and he says, you're all scared. Why are you scared? They go, have you seen the giant, Goliath? And he goes, well, I'm going to tell you what, I'll take him. He says, I'll tell you what, when I was a young kid, I used to tend the sheep. And guess what would come? Lions would come and take our sheep. And bears would come and take our sheep. And when they did, I'd knock them in the head. I would. And I'd take that sheep back out of their mouth. And if they came at me, I'd hit them in the jaw and I'd tear them apart. He said, he was a boy. He said, I'm not scared. I'm not scared of a lion. I'm not scared of a bear. And I'm sure not scared of that guy.
What guy?
No, not that guy. That guy's Grant. Not him. It's a giant guy. Goliath. He says, I'm not scared of Goliath. You're not scared?
What giant guy?
That's the story. That's the story. So listen. So they say, okay, you're not scared. Well, why don't you do this? Put on all the armor and go out and fight with him. So they put all this armor on this 14-year-old boy. He's like, I can't even stand up in this armor. What are you talking about? He says, take it off of me. So they did. He says, I've got everything I need right here.
You giant!
right now, David. Okay, I've got everything I need. And he takes some stones and he takes a slingshot. And what happens? He takes that slingshot and those stones and he goes, whack! And he hits that giant in the only place he can hurt him, right in the forehead. He falls over dead. David takes his sword, cuts his head off.
Let's eat our supper!
I'll close this off now. Okay, so here's how we finish it. The reason that David was not scared, can you imagine why he wasn't scared?
Because he had sheep and he was protecting his sheep.
Not exactly. That's
Because
why.
Jesus was helping him.
Because he had a covenant with God. He knew that he was in a special relationship with God. And that when God is in a relationship with you, you don't need to be scared. It isn't that bad things don't come along, they do. But the thing is, God is there with you. And you don't have to be so stuck by being scared that you run away. You can rather face everything in life, knowing that God is right there with you. That's what he taught us. And that's the story of David and Goliath. So thank you for being here. Some of our children rewrite the ending of the David and Goliath story. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe that might be just great. So I want to go back now and go to the gospel. Now remember the gospel story. The gospel story is the disciples and Jesus get in the boat and they get teaching on the mountain and Jesus says, the crowds are too big, let's get on the mountain, get in the boat and let's go across the Sea of Galilee. And a great storm comes and they are frightened for their lives and they go over and they wake Jesus up. And Jesus said, calms the storm and then he rebukes the disciples. And my question is, why was Jesus so angry? What is it that the disciples did that made Jesus angry? What did they do wrong? Right? Like, what would you do? See,
Run away!
they didn't run away. You're in a boat. Let the adults have a chance. The disciples didn't ask for this. Peter and John and James and Matt, they didn't go along and find Jesus and say, hey, come along, let's start a movement. It didn't happen that way. It happened the other way. Jesus said, came along, found them mending their nets, and said, come with me. And he found Matthew and the tax collector who said, come with me. And they didn't ask for this. They left their lives following this rabbi, this teacher, who told them things that they'd never heard before and did things that they'd never seen before. And along the way, they came to believe in a way they never believed before. In a God that they thought they knew but maybe didn't really understand before. And so they come with him and they're following him and they see the miracles and they have this energy and they have this faith and they form a community, right? In Jesus' time, when they get in the boat, they're already a community. The boat is big enough to hold them all. It says there were other boats with them, so other people came too. But they were already a community. And when Mark is writing this, he's in a community of faith. And we're retelling this story in a community. They are a people of faith already. They get in the boat. The storm comes up. They're scared, right? What do? They wake him up. Why is he so angry, right? And what did he expect them to do? What would you have done? Same thing, right? I wonder what would have been the faithful response. And he was asking, because what he says to them is, why would you have more faith? What does he say? He says, first he calms the sea, peace be still, then the wind ceased, and there was dead calm. He said to them, why are you afraid? Have you still no faith? And I was just struggling, I still am. What would have been a faithful response? To get on their knees and pray as the storm is going? What do you think of Peter? Peter stands up, maybe Peter was supposed to stand up and say, peace, be still. He's calm the storm himself. Abandon the ship. What should they have done? Fallen asleep, taken whatever came, died? I don't know. But it seems to me that what Jesus might be saying, what I think Jesus is saying, is look, you're a community of faith. Where's your faith? You are a community of faith, and if you're a community of faith, where's the faith? I think that's the point. And what would that faith look like? Well, for David, it was standing up and saying, I believe in the covenant that we have with God. Right? We're a people of God. Let's show them that we're a people of God by acting like it. Let's go forth with courage. Let's set fear aside. I think that's... And the disciples would have known. Act as though we are chosen, because in fact we are. So, are you afraid today? Are you afraid of your present situation? What in your life is the Goliath? What in your life is the tempest or storm that is bringing you to this place of fear? What is it about that that paralyzes us? And how might we react faithfully to those fears in our lives? Several of us are talking right now. I'm 57 years old, and I can tell you it's not a very fun age. Anybody here 57 or older? It's not a very fun age because it's like, really? I thought it would be different than this, right? Like, I'm thinking, I was talking to somebody, Judah, you and I were talking, and saying, what's the next thing? I've always kind of been about the next thing. And I think you and I were talking about this at your party when we talked about the newcomer dinner. I've always been about, okay, I'm going to achieve this goal, then I'm going to achieve that goal, and then I got another. Now I'm looking at myself thinking, 20 years from now, what's it going to be like? And it brings a lot of fear into my life. And I'm like, golly, I don't know. That's the giant I'm struggling with right now. But I forget that God is with me in this boat. God called me. Not to the priest, of course, to the priesthood, but to my life as Christian. God called me. God sent me off into the water. And storms have come up my whole life. And storms have abated. And more storms will come. But we can't forget that God is with us. Because we are people of God. And because we are people of God, we are people of faith. And if we are people of faith, where is our faith? Where is my faith? What would it look like? I'm talking fast. Let me stop and let this rest. What would faith look like as we face those giants, those storms in our lives? My sense is that our first response should be prayer. Should be on our knees or standing up, sitting down, but somehow in conversation with the God that has called us and redeemed us. Because so often when I'm facing these things in my life, it's about what I can do to get to the next place. When in fact, faith begins with prayer. And then it's action. And then it's doing something. The next thing that God has called us to do. What would faith look like for you? And so, in your life, let me ask you a question about our future together. Are you afraid of what the next 5 years will look like here? 10 years? 20 years? My question is, what don't we have that we need? We have all the tools we need. We have all the treasure that we need. We have all the talent. It's all here. And anything we don't need, if we pray about, God will bring. God is always, am I right, Deacon? Who's been here 20 years? Who's been here 10 years? Right? 20 years, right? Sally, you've seen times in this church when it was just a handful. Thinking, oh my gosh, God started this. Aren't you ever going to finish it? You just left us here? Didn't you want to go shake God and wake him up? But God calmed that sea and brought you here. And I'm saying to us as a community, let's don't ever let fear keep us from living into the fullness of the future that God has for us. Don't let fear stop us from our own future. Fear is not irrational, but it's irrelevant. Did you hear me? Fear is not irrational. It's a rational response, but it's irrelevant. Because faith cannot coexist with fear. Light cannot coexist with darkness. Evil cannot coexist with good. We are people of faith. What does it look like to be people of faith? Where is our faith? Let's live it.